The Abbey has a very dear friend who lives in Portland. Her name is LaShelle Lowe-Chardé. And not only is she a very skilled therapist, but she's also a very excellent trainer in nonviolent communication. And so the Abbey has a strong connection with her and has for a number of years. She's helping us to learn NVC. She also has a very nice e-newsletter that she puts out periodically, I don't know, maybe once a week, and called Connection Gem of the Week. And the one that came out this last week, I found really touched me deeply because it was about worthlessness and belonging. Probably none of you have any of those issues. No, okay, just me. I have them. And so I just thought to mention some of these, and then we can explore some Dharma ways for working with some of these issues. She says it's tragic that far too many of us live with a sense of worthlessness. You know, it's just there in the background. You've worked on it for years in your therapy, but it's still there to some degree. With worthlessness comes the idea of not belonging or not being worthy of belonging. So belonging in this context is more than an identity with a particular group. It's a sort of belonging that enables you to get other fundamental needs met, like safety, support, nourishment, and love. And so she listed some strategies that many of us engage in when there is this sense of worthlessness, when it's coupled with a threat to belonging. You know, that's painful enough, but then a lot of our coping mechanisms actually exacerbate the suffering that we go through. And so she says some of the most common compensatory strategies for managing the emotional pain of feeling worthless are these 5, and just see if you relate to one or more of them. Withdrawing and keeping life as narrow as possible. Finding value by being the one that everyone needs, the self-sacrificing helper. Winning others over through charm and manipulation, telling others what they want to hear so they will let you belong. Creating an image of invulnerability, challenging others and acting as if you're in charge, and claiming specialness or superiority through achievements, abilities, rank, race, beauty, wealth, or anything else that you imagine makes you better than others. I could imagine that one being appropriate. And she just says, as you reflect on these compensatory strategies to win worthiness and belonging, you might start to see how each effectively blocks the very thing that you're pursuing. For example, claiming specialness or superiority means that you have to see yourself as different from others and view them as less, which also creates a sense of distance with others. So something you're trying to use as a mechanism to overcome becomes the very cause of feeling alienated from others. And so as I was thinking of this, I've wondered for years where this sense of worthlessness comes from, because it seems to be pervasive, not only in throughout many different cultures, many different countries, many different socioeconomic groups. I mean, it's just pervasive. It'd be nice if we could get to the root of it. Maybe it's self-grasping and self-cherishing. But I was reflecting, each morning we say a prayer here at the Abbey, and one of the lines of the prayers is something about, with respect for others and confidence in my own good qualities. I love that line because it really causes me to pause and think, oh right, I do have some good qualities I can draw on. And I was thinking, well, how is it that we can increase those good qualities? Because if we can genuinely feel confidence in our good qualities, then that sense of worthlessness is lessened to a large degree. So on the way back from the dentist, I was talking with Venerable Jampa about this, and we came up with some ideas. Developing valid good qualities like developing loving kindness, developing patience, being generous, being just kind, developing compassion. Those are some ways that each of us can easily engage in meditations and thought processes that help us to begin to value the fact that we can develop those, we can increase them, and display them towards others. In addition to that, I was thinking about how this relates to Buddha nature. And we use that term a lot, that we all have Buddha nature. So what does that actually mean in this context? How is it that we increase our confidence in our own Buddha nature? And so there are these two aspects of Buddha nature. One is the Buddha nature to be developed, or the developing Buddha nature, and the other one is the naturally abiding Buddha nature. And so the developing Buddha nature is the fact that our mind can change. It's just that quality of the mind that it can change, and it can change for the better. So for instance, if we think back to how our mind was and how our behavior was before we got involved with Buddhism, whether that's 6 months ago or 5 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago for some of us, if we think back to who we were then, how we were behaving, we can see changes. We can see that our minds have changed, the way we think changes, the way we act changes, at least to some degree. And so that's proof right there that our mind is pliable, plasticity of the mind, right? Our mind can change depending on what we focus on. And that change comes about because of that other, more subtle Buddha nature, which is the naturally abiding Buddha nature, the fact that our mind lacks inherent existence. Our mind lacks independence. Our mind is a conditioned phenomena that depends on causes and conditions. So it might be easier to start with to develop loving kindness, compassion. Those kind of meditations are more straightforward. But eventually, to really undermine this erroneous sense of worthlessness, then we need to understand the empty nature of our mind. So I think those 5 are worth thinking about, identifying them in ourselves, and applying the antidote so that we can actually accomplish what we want, which is to have a valid sense of self-confidence that we can share the Dharma with others.